All right. Well, thank you everyone for attending today's brown bag session. We will be covering a topic of observability. And my name is Lisa Carnes. I'm one of our customer success managers here at Sumo, and I'm going to get things kicked off here for us today. And just a quick recap, if you haven't been to one of our brown bag sessions before, we launched this series in April, and it's a great time for customers such as yourselves to have an intimate setting with one of our technical experts. We have these sessions every second, third, and fourth Tuesday, of every month. And we focus on a specific technical topic. And today I'm really excited to have our session being led by one of our principal engineers, Tarun, and he's going to cover our observability topic today, which is reliability management, SLI and SLOs. And so as usual, if you have any questions, feel free to add them in the chat or the Q&A, and I will be taking a look at those, and I'll stop Tarun if you guys have a question, and we can go from there. And then also at the very end, we'll have time for Q&A as well. So without further ado, I'll kick it over to Tarun.
Thanks, Lisa. I'll share my screen and kick it off. Are you able to see my screen?
Yes.
Awesome. So I'll introduce myself. I'm Tarun Kumar. I'm principal engineer at Sumo Logic. In this session, we'll talk about reliability management, SLIs and SLOs. This is one product area that we introduced in our product last year in August. And since then, we have seen phenomenal feedback from customers as well as adoption. So in this session, we'll talk about what reliability management is, why did we introduce that in our product, and how do we see it evolving as more customers adopt it. So let's kick it off. So at high level, let's say if you're running a digital first business, reliability of your application is very important. Each minute of downtime that you have, it affects your customers. Not only it is loss of business for you, it basically reduces the confidence of your customers into your business. And apart from that, it is not good for your business in the long run. You want your customers to have high confidence in your digital first business. So you want your site to be as reliable as possible. But the other side of this is, as you get closer to 100% uptime, each incremental improvement takes more effort and more resources. So you don't want to aim for 100% reliability, because that comes at the cost of speed of innovation. So what you want is, you want a good balance between speed of innovation, which is delivering new features, and then making sure that your customers are having good digital first experience. And maintaining that balance is critical for digital businesses. And reliability management, SLOs specifically help you do that. So let's look at it with an example. Let's say we are running an e-commerce store, a digital first e-commerce store. And when you run that application, you might have lots of services that are responsible within your business. We have cart service, checkout service, payment service, shipping service, and you want each of those services to have good customer experience. And if you start configuring low-level alerts or infrastructure level alerts, those alerts might be too flaky, or your on-call engineers might get too many alerts. And if they are flaky, they might generate alert fatigue, and they might reduce the productivity of your engineers. And that is a real problem. So what is the solution for this? The solution for this is, you should think in terms of customer experience. Think about what kind of experience do you want to provide to customers, and measure it, and then make sure that you track it as you make progress. And some of the things that you would typically track is golden signals. So let's say, what kind of latencies do your APIs have, or are your API calls failing or not? These are some of the golden signals that you would want to track. Those are actionable. Those are the things that are visible to your customers. And as you track them, you would know what kind of reliability do you want. So that is what you do with SLOs. Let's drill down further. So let's say you decide that you want to focus on checkout service, and you want to make sure that if a user is on checkout page, clicking on checkout button should not take more than 500 milliseconds to finish. Which means if a user is taking more than 500 milliseconds, if it is taking more than 500 milliseconds for user to do a checkout, it's not a good experience for your customers. So what you would do is, you would define an SLO for it. And because you can't just make sure that every request will finish within 500 milliseconds, because that's practically not possible, or it will be just too expensive for you to do. What you would do is you will have some acceptable level of unreliability. What I mean by that is, let's say you track your checkout latency over let's say 30 days, and you break your 30-day window into 5-minute chunks. And then for each 5-minute chunk, you say whether that 5 minute was a good 5-minute window or a bad 5-minute window. And the way you define that is, let's say you say that if P99 latency is less than 500 milliseconds within a window, that window is a good window. What that means is you are saying that I'm okay with having 1% requests taking longer than 500 milliseconds, but I don't want more than 1% request to take more than 500 milliseconds. And as soon as I have more than 1% request taking more than 500 milliseconds, I'll declare that window as a bad window. So that is the measurement that you are doing over the time period, and that is called SLI. Now, what is SLO? SLO is whatever the measurement is, you define a goal for it and you track it over some time period. So in this case, you say that I want to track it over 1 month, and I want to make sure that 99.9% of such windows are good windows. And I'm okay with having 0.1% windows as bad windows. So in a way, you have defined acceptable level of unreliability. You are saying that I'm okay with having 0.1% windows as bad windows, which means within 30 days, I'm okay with having 8 such bad windows, and rest of the windows should be good. As long as I'm within my goal, my SLO looks good. So this is how you track your SLO. And as you see here, we have given ourselves enough wiggle room so that we can ship new features, we can do new innovation. And whenever you do a new innovation, of course, you'll have some failures also. And that is accounted for in your SLO definition. While doing that, you are also making sure that your customers are continuing to have good experience most of the time. And that is baked into this definition. So this was the high level premise of reliability management. Now we'll dig into how does Sumo do it. So in this section, we'll talk about our product from reliability management point of view, and then we'll do a demo for it. Cool. So in the current state, there are 3 segments if we look at reliability management. One is, as a user, you would define your SLOs. Secondly, you would basically make sure that whenever you are not meeting your SLO, or when you are not heading in the right direction, it notifies you so that you can react. And third thing is, you might want to look at historical data, or you might want to compare current compliance period with previous compliance period, and making sure that your data looks good, or you are heading in the right direction. So these are the high level buckets. So let's talk about first one, which is if as a user you want to define an SLO, you can do that on any type of telemetry, whether it is logs data or metrics data or trace metrics. You can define SLOs for them in Sumo Logic. You can define lots of things within your SLO definition that we'll look at in our demo. Other thing that you can do is you can define your SLOs using UI. You can do that using APIs, or you can do that using our Terraform provider. So depending on your preference, you can either do it via code or you can do it via UI. And then other thing is you can define multiple types of monitors that will notify you, and you will look at dashboards. So let's look at the demo, and I think that will make things more clearer. So we'll go to one of our deployments, and we will look at the SLOs. So this is the page where you go to define SLOs. And on this page, whenever you want to, on this page, you see a list of all the SLOs that you have defined. You can create a folder. You can have one folder for each team, one folder for one product area, and so on. And you can define multiple SLOs within that folder. So let's create a new SLO from scratch. So I go here, I click on new SLO. And as you see here, this is the editor where you define your SLO definition. This has 3 sections. One is SLI, which is measurement, as we saw in previous slides. Second one is you define your target that you want to have over some time period. And then you define basic definition of your SLO. So let's go through it quickly one by one. So under SLI, you define what exactly do you want to measure. And as we see, it says that definition of SLI is total number of successful events divided by total number of events into 100. And this is the value that you get that gives you a measurement of how you are doing as far as your SLO is concerned. We support two types of SLOs. One is query-based source, other one is monitor-based source. Query-based sources, the underlying data that you want to query is there in Sumo Logic, either in logs or metrics or trace metrics, and you can query it using our query languages. The other one is monitor-based, where you already have a monitor defined in Sumo, and you want to use that as a base for defining your SLI. We'll talk about monitor-based SLOs in a minute, but let's focus on query-based for now. Here you can specify what type of signal does your SLO represent. Is it on latency? Is it on error, throughput, availability, or any other golden signal? And then we support two types of evaluations. One is request-based, other one is window-based. What I mean by request-based is basically what you do is you look at every request that your users make, whether they invoke your API or they do any operation in your product, and you figure out how many of those total requests were successful requests and how many of them were failed requests. And ratio of both of them gives you a value that is called SLI. In window-based, as we were looking at in that example, you basically divide your compliance period into buckets of smaller chunks. And for each bucket, you say whether that window is a good window or a bad window. And your SLI value is, as we see in the formula, it says total number of windows that you have. Out of those windows, how many windows were successful windows. So ratio of those into 100 gives you your SLI value. Let's choose request-based SLI. Here you can define query for successful events or unsuccessful events. And here you define query for total events. So let's say if you're looking at API latency, every request that is done by user will be tracked under total events. And then every request that is successful is tracked under successful events. And ratio of these two gives you the SLI value. Here you can see the preview, just so that you can tune your threshold and make sure your query gives the correct output. In this section, you define your SLO. So let's say I'm aiming for 99.9% of time. So I'll specify, let's say 99.9 here. And we support two types of compliance periods. One is rolling, other one is calendar. Calendar is you want to track it over calendar period. So let's say if I choose calendar, I can say that I want to track it every week, which means every Monday to Sunday or every Sunday to Saturday, depending on what my week is. Or I can say that I want to track it month over month, which means every calendar month becomes my compliance period. So entire January will be one compliance period, then entire February will be another compliance period, and so on. And then other one is quarter. So you want to track it quarter by quarter, so that you can get your SLI value per quarter and you can compare it with previous quarters. The other one that we support is rolling. In case of rolling, what you do is whatever duration you specify here, it basically has a rolling window, which means every time a day changes, it basically defines a new compliance period. So if I define rolling window of 7 days, what this means is my compliance period will last 7 days, and it will be from 7 days before to now, and then 7 days plus 1 day to now plus 1 day, and so on. This means it's a sliding window, which means 1 day is getting subtracted from the left-hand side and 1 day is being added. So the key difference between the two is you would typically use calendar one when you want to do business reporting, when you promise some SLAs to your customers and you want to make sure that you meet your goals. That's when you would use calendar based. Rolling based is typically preferred by engineers who want to track it over rolling windows, so that let's say if you have an outage on last day of the month, you want to make sure that it continues to penalize you in the early days of next month. Right? Just because month is over, that does not mean that you can just ignore whatever happened. Right? So basically, in that case, you are moving your windows in a sliding fashion. Here you specify basic details and save the SLO. So let's look at one of the existing SLOs. I did not really include all this information because it will take time. But as we see here in this SLO, what we are doing is we are looking at all the API requests that are being made by customers. And as we see here, this one looks at all the API calls that were made by customers. And this is unsuccessful events, and this is a filter, and it is looking for only those events that have status, HTTP status more than 500, which means these calls failed. And ratio of these two will give me SLI value. Here I get to see the preview, I specify the parameters, and that's how I define my SLI. And then what I do is I can define monitors on top of my SLO. So let's look at that example. So whenever I want to define monitors on my SLO, I'll choose my SLO from the drop down, and then I'll specify when do I want to get alerted. So we support two types of monitors. One is SLI based monitors. So let's say if my target was 99.9% uptime, I would want to get alerted before I hit 99.9% because I want to get alerted proactively so that I can react and fix issues. So in that case, if my goal was 99.9, I'll probably set up my alert at 99.95. So as soon as my SLI value hits 99.95, it will notify me. The other type of monitor that I can configure is burn rate monitor. So this is about the rate at which I'm burning my error budget. So in this case, let's say I say that I want to get alerted when 10% of my error budget depletes within, let's say, 1 hour. So as soon as 10% of my overall error budget that is there in the month depletes, it will notify me on channel of my choice. It can notify me over PagerDuty, Slack, Jira, Opsgenie, or wherever else you want to get your notifications. And when I get the notifications, that notification will tell me that something is wrong. Either I'm burning my error budget too fast, or I have already touched my SLI value, depending on my configuration. And then as a user, I would want to look at, oh, what happened? What exactly might have caused this, and how do I debug this? So there's a link to SLO dashboard in your notification. When you open it, it will take you to a dashboard that is pre-built for every SLO that you define in Sumo. And you can use this dashboard to look at your SLO. So as we see here, in this case, my target was 99.95. It is saying that I'm right now at 99.976, which means I still have some error budget left. I still have 53% of my total error budget left. But then I don't have that much error budget left. So I'll have to make sure that I don't burn my error budget fast. And in this case, it shows me how does it compare with previous compliance periods and so on. So this gives you bird's eye view into how is your SLO doing and what is the trend. As we see here, there were some API failures here. I hover over this, and it shows that at this time, 1.47% of my requests failed, which is interesting. I might want to dig into this to figure out what exactly caused this. And then from here, I can drill down and go to log search page. And then I get to see individual event. And that is very helpful for debugging the issue. I can go to messages tab, and I get to see how many requests failed and what exactly happened here. So this is how you can make progress in your troubleshooting journey. Cool. So this was the demo. And now let's look at our competition, where we are and how does our offering compare with our competition. So if we talk about what kind of telemetry is supported by SLOs in Sumo, we support SLOs on logs, metrics, and traces. And some of our competitors support other telemetries, but not all three of them. We support monitor-based SLOs. What I mean by that is, let's say if you already have a monitor in Sumo and you want to use that as a base for defining your SLO, what you would do is you'll define monitor-based SLO. And what it would do is, for whichever minute your SLO was, for whichever minute your monitor was in triggered state, it will assume that there was a SLO violation during that minute. And your SLI value will be total number of bad minutes, which means total number of minutes for which your monitor was in trigger state, divided by total number of minutes into 100. That will give you the SLI value. So this is a quick way to configure SLOs using monitors that you already have in the product. And this ensures that the customers who are more comfortable with monitors, they still continue to use those for SLOs. For query-based SLO, we already talked about. This is what I demoed previously. So that is supported by most of our competition. We support both request and window-based SLOs, while most of our competitors don't. We support both types of compliance periods, rolling and calendar, that we just talked about. And this is how it compares with our competition. Other one is compound and rollups. So let's say you have 4 SLOs for a service, one for latency, one for errors, one for throughput, and let's say one for availability. So what you do is you will define 4 of those SLOs, but you want one aggregated SLI value for your entire service. And for that, you'll have to roll up all your SLOs. We don't really support that in our product right now, but we provide you lots of ways that you can achieve it on your own. What we do is, every SLO that you configure in Sumo, we put the output of that SLO in a view in Sumo Logic, and that you can query and get the data that you would need to do rollups and other interesting things. SLO backfill, this is other thing that we support. What I mean by that is, let's say you define an SLO, but you would want to look at historical data for that SLO. But because you have defined that SLO right now, that data is not available. So what we do is we backfill the data for previous compliance periods, just so that you can compare that SLO with previous compliance periods immediately after you define that SLO. And that is a very powerful capability. Other one is SLO history. Whenever you define an SLO, we preserve the output of that SLO for multiple years. So 3 years is default, but we can extend it as much as our customers want. But if you look at our competition, it's nowhere close to them, right? I mean, ours is much, much longer. Other one is we support SLO monitors that we just talked about. We support, you can configure these SLOs using Terraform, APIs, and so on. We support tags. So you can associate tags with SLOs. You can filter your SLOs using tags. You can use tags for rollups and so on, which is very powerful. Other key thing I want to point out is OpenSLO support. So there's this open source specification for SLOs called OpenSLO, and we support that. What I mean by that is, let's say if you want to configure SLOs in vendor agnostic manner in Sumo Logic, you can do that using SLOgen tool that we have built that uses this OpenSLO specification, which means you can migrate from one vendor to another without having to redo all your automation for your SLOs, and we support it from day one. Other key things, maintenance windows, we don't support them yet, but I'll talk about the future of it in a minute or so. But overall, as you see, like I think in terms of our capabilities and feature richness, I think it is pretty good. And we provide all the building blocks that our customers would need to do much more beyond that I'll show you in a minute. Now, I think let's talk about more differentiators. I could not fit them on single slide, so this is where we'll talk about this. So we have this view Sumo Logic SLO output. I talked about that earlier. So what this view is, basically you run this query Sumo Logic underscore SLO underscore output. You run this query for 3 hours, let's say. What this query does is it basically shows you the data, output data for every SLO. So in this, you see that for this SLO, total number of requests during this minute were 770, and out of those, all 770 of them were good requests. But if you have a failure, this good count will be lesser than total count. And this is very powerful because not only it gives you base data that you would need to slice and dice this data further, but basically it enables lots of use cases such as rollups, or you can basically build your own visualizations for your dashboards. And you can use this data the way you like, including for correlation. Other thing is we provide definitions of all SLOs in a lookup table. So we provide this lookup table. So let's say I run this query cat Sumo content SLOs. This lookup table provides you definition of all your SLOs in a single place. So as you see, for every SLO, we have single log line and a single entry. And this entry shows this is the SLO ID, this is the SLO name, this is the folder it is in. And then parameters of this, what is the target, what are the queries that we have used in this SLO, and it shows what is the signal type, what is the evaluation type, and so on. This is very powerful because if you join this data with Sumo Logic SLO output view, you have all the fields from SLO definition that you can use for filtering, correlation, joins, and so on. And you can build custom visualization as well using this. Other one is our SLOs integrate well with rest of the product. So let's say if you're running a log search, what you can do is with single click, you can create an SLO. You click here, it opens SLO. So this query is not really valid for that use case, but when you click here, it basically lets you create an SLO. Same thing for metrics. If you are, let's say, running a metric query, I'll just run a random query just to demonstrate what I mean by this. So let's say this is that. And then with single click, I can create an SLO. I click here and it opens the SLO editor. It fetches all the information from that page and it populates here, which means most of the information is pre-populated here. Now, all I have to do is just define my target and what period I want to track it for, give some basic information and done. So this integrates very well with the rest of the product, and you can leverage all the cool capabilities that you use in the rest of the product. Now let's talk about what is next. So one of the things that we are planning is ability to save your views. So let's go to SLO page just to talk about that for a minute. So if I go to this page, SLO list page, I can define tags on SLOs, right? As we see here, I can specify tags. I can say that this is the team, this is the service, this is the product area, and so on. And then I can filter my SLOs using tags. I click here, and because I have not defined any tags so far, that is why it is shown here, but I can filter my SLOs page using tags or other keys. And after I do that, I'll be able to save this as my default view. In a reasonably sized organization, you might have multiple teams, you might have multiple product areas, and not everybody might be interested in all the SLOs. So what you can do is, as a user, you can define your filters. You can filter this page using tags or other keys, and then you can save it as the default view. So every time you come to this page, your default view is what you will see automatically here. And then you will be able to focus on the SLOs that matter to you the most. This is something that we are actively working on. Apart from that, lots of organizations use maintenance windows. So let's say you want to deploy a hot fix in your production, or you need to have maintenance window because you need to do some maintenance activity on, let's say, on your database or anywhere else in your infrastructure. And you don't want to account this issue in your SLOs or this maintenance window into your SLO. So what you would do is you'll define a maintenance window in the product. You would associate that maintenance window with an SLO or multiple SLOs. And for whatever duration your maintenance window was active, your SLO will not show any violation, regardless of what output your SLO has. So this is another thing that we plan to actively work on. Apart from that, we are working very closely with our customers, getting their feedback and preparing our roadmap. So that's all I have for this session.
Thank you, Tarun. That was awesome. It looks like we didn't get any questions during the presentation, but if there's any questions right now, feel free to type them in and we can have Tarun answer them. Otherwise, we can end this session for today, but let's just give it a couple seconds in case a question comes in. Thanks for adding in what's coming next, Tarun. That was nice. I wasn't expecting that part. The save view looks like it'll be really helpful.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think we are working very closely with our customers, as I said, and they are influencing our roadmap. So if any of our customers have any feedback on this, or they would like to influence the roadmap, we're happy to work with them.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, so it looks like no other questions came in. Well, I really appreciate your time, Tarun. Thank you so much for teaching us about the SLIs and SLOs. This session is obviously being recorded, so we'll have it on our YouTube channel for people to reference in the future. So thanks, everyone. Have a good rest of your day.
Bye. Have a good day.
Bye.